everybody. Welcome to another very special edition of Public Relations Professionals of India panel. I'm really excited for all of you to join us today. We have a very special edition today. It's called Industry Edition. What are the expectations of the industry from PR professionals? We have two wonderful panelists joining us, whom I will just be introducing. But before that, I'd like to thank our content curators Tarunjeet, Rattan, and Pooja Trehan, as always, for being rock solid and helping put together these panels. Without further ado, because I know this is a very exciting edition for all of you to know, and I'm sure we'll have a lot of young professionals tuned in to know more about how the industry is changing and what are the expectations from them today. I'm going to introduce our two panelists to you. Our first panelist is Dr. Sudipta Sen Gupta. She has had a career spanning 26 years where she has been in academia full time for the past 5 years. Over 21 years in the corporate sector in senior roles in multinationals like Coca Cola, Carlsberg, Del Monte, and Compaq, as well as leading global projects in PR and corporate communications, advertising, strategy, research, and innovation teams. Further, she has been a part of senior management in Cafe Coffee Day, Inox, and Nirulas, heading the company's business transformation, brand development, and growth initiatives. Let's welcome Dr. Sudipta Sengupta. Hi, Sudipta, how are you?
And thank you so much for that introduction. I'm so happy to be here today.
We are very happy to have you, Sudipta. So good to reconnect with you after so long. And we are now going to just quickly introduce our next panelist as well, so we can start this panel. Our next panelist is Indu Sharma. She is an integrated communications leader with a penchant for telling compelling stories. She has led communications for diverse domains and currently holds office as Senior GM Communications Schneider Electric. She has been actively involved in leading innovation and learning in the communication industry. She has rich experience in curating corporate sustainability and brand communication campaigns. Indu is an executive MBA, Masters in Mass Communication, and certified digital marketing professional. Welcome, Indu. How are you?
Thank you so much, Sonali. That seemed like a very long list of things that I've done over the years. But thanks a lot. I'm so happy to be here. Hello, Dr. Sudipta. It's great to meet you also after such a long time.
Yeah, I know. I was just we were just discussing that it's been a while, and it's nice to see familiar faces. Yeah, of course, even if it is across the screen. So I'm going to just let the audience know that I've had the pleasure to work with both these wonderful ladies, and many years ago. And it's been a pleasure to work with them, and I've learned a lot from both of them. Even then, on the interactions we had, and they both have very exemplary career trajectories, which I think a lot of us can take a leaf out of their book on how they have planned their careers. So, without further ado, I'm going to get into that as well. Dr. Sengupta, can you just share? Of course, we know a little about your career, but can you just share how you got interested in this profession and this field, and how you joined, and what were your experiences as a young fresher in the industry? You're on mute.
Unlike many of the smart young professionals of today, my beginnings were a bit unsure. I did my graduation in physics and only then decided to do an MBA. And post an MBA majoring in marketing, I joined Coca Cola. Through campus placements, you're never sure where you land up, but I really wanted to land up in a company which was known for its brand and communication strategy, and that turned out to be a great learning experience, as did the later ones with Compaq and eventually landed up in Cafe Coffee Day. By when I really got exposure to PR, as it were, because my in early days you're not really involved in something as important and crucial to the company as PR. So the PR and communication journey, I would say, really started from Cafe Coffee Day, where I built the marketing function, the communication functions from scratch, recruited people, and I guess from there on it was a little more familiar territory. But it has been a lifelong learning. And even as I teach now, as you mentioned, last 5 years I've been in academia. I'm teaching a new batch of professionals. So that's a whole different challenge altogether, and I would say as challenging as perhaps my corporate career.
I think I'm going to agree with you on that because I've also done a couple of guest lectures and I realized that it is very, very challenging in today's time, especially with today's generation. But we are going to come to that a little later. Just out of curiosity, why did you get interested in academia after such a, you've done work with some of the best brands? So, what made you make that jump to academia? Very interested to know that.
Well, I've always liked teaching, even if I was working 12 hours a day or 14 hours a day. On the weekends, I would go to institutes like Nirma Institute of Management, or perhaps an IIM Bangalore, or perhaps an ISB Hyderabad, and give guest lectures. So I've always kept in touch with academics, and after my stint with Carlsberg, where I handled the brand communication for a bit, uh, I started getting involved in CSR and sustainability for the company. And as you know, as an European multinational, Carlsberg is extremely focused on sustainability and CSR. So when I got interested in it as a practitioner, I wanted to study it more. And from there, I started doing my PhD. And after that, I guess I stuck around in academia.
Okay, we are very eager to hear more about this part of your journey, but I'm going to request Indu now to tell us a little about how her career trajectory started. Indu, you, I think, started with agency background and then you shifted to corporate. So, just would be lovely to hear it from your words now. Indu, you're on mute. I think our panelist is a little frozen. Indu is having a few issues with her Wi Fi. So we request all our audience to bear with us. I think she's back. I'm just going to wait very eagerly for her to join back. If she can be back in the show, then we'll have her talk. Otherwise, Dr. Sen Gupta, you and I are going to chat a little, a little more about things and today's students. So I think she's having a little trouble with her Wi-Fi. So we'll just continue maybe about how when you mentioned right now, and I'd love to know why do you think teaching today is more difficult than a corporate career? I mean, there's so much pressure in corporates as well. ROI is so important. I'm sure you're doing things all the time. So how does it differ, and why is it as challenging, or if not more?
See, anything becomes challenging if the landscape is continuously changing. And what was difficult or challenging about the corporate world was, over the last 20, 30 years, while we have had our corporate careers, the world has changed quite a bit. They say it's a VUCA world and it started like 20, 30 years ago. So we were constantly battling, and at the same time trying to stick to a particular strategy, and even the strategy was evolving over time. So that was a different kind of challenge. Now the world is changing faster now. So how do you train managers of tomorrow? How do you train communicators of tomorrow? Because by the time, it's like in a football game, by the time you reach a spot, the ball has moved elsewhere. So you have to move where the ball is supposed to be. So making them future ready, I think, has its own challenges. Of course, the vehicle has changed from a print focus to a broadcast focused, and now it's completely internet focused in many ways. So preparing communicators today for tomorrow is basically the challenge now.
That is actually a very interesting aspect of this because we have realized that COVID has made a lot of changes in our lives. It's accelerated the digital transformation, to my understanding as well. And I think now, even if the world someday goes back to normal, it's not changing back to what it used to be. It's going to be, as they say, a new normal. So,
Absolutely.
how have you seen these changes, Dr. Sen Gupta? Do you feel, because I'm sure you also advise students on recruitment. So, what are the skills that you're telling them to, skill up on today? How has it changed, especially when it comes to PR, for instance?
Yeah.
How would you tell a PR student to skill up today?
So some of the skills remain the same actually, and it's important to remember those. So At a basic level, communication skills are important for any person seeking a PR career, a career in PR. And it continues to be about whether you have studied, English, or maybe even have foreign languages in your repertoire, whether you understand subtle nuances in the language, how you are in the spoken word, in the written word. So communication skills still reign supreme. And that's very much a focus area in education as well. Another thing that is increasingly important is research skills. There is so much information out there today that a good PR person needs to be a good researcher, as we say. And it all starts at an academic level when they're researching theory, and it then ends up being about keeping up to speed with what's going on in the world around you, with current affairs, learning about new markets and new techniques and new tools. And this is very much important, the research skills bit. I don't know how much writing young professionals have to do now, but I must point out this is where we find a gap between what we are able to, get in terms of, a basic level of writing skills within students and what they have to end up being. So there's a gap in that aspect. Students don't like writing perhaps as much as they used to. So that is something that we try and develop. It will always stand them in good stead, even if you're writing for a digital medium. Another thing which is important is to have a broader mindset, have an international mindset, because you never know to whom you are speaking. Nowadays, we have a borderless world in the internet, and having an international mindset, being aware of your, if you're working for a particular client, about their international businesses, because consumers are now aware of their international businesses. So a student of PR has to develop an international mindset as well. And another thing I'd like to go back to is creativity. It was always important because there are so many opportunities to do good PR. And if you let go of these opportunities, then it'll be it'll be repetitive, it'll be ineffective. So creativity is certainly a skill that some people are born with. Yes, they are instinctive about good PR, but maybe you could hone it over your educational journey as well.
Thank you. I think that's really well summed up, and I think you've really touched on some of the points which probably a lot of us have grouses with when young professionals join, especially things like writing skills and all. And Indu, welcome back as well. Thank you. I hope your Wi-Fi
Thank you.
issues are resolved.
Yeah,
So,
thank you so much.
um, so we quickly jump into just if you could give us a quick introduction to yourself and how you reached where you have, and then we've already warmed up a lot while you were not there on the first question, so we address that to you as well. So to begin with, if you could just let us know a little bit about yourself, your career trajectory would be great.
Sure. Thank you so much. So I was wanting to say last time that, many few people know that, I started my career as a journalist with one of the key publications, Times of India at that time. And I was there for a little while, little over a year. And it didn't really strike a chord with me, but then I moved to communications, and I was so hooked on to the kind of work that public relations the teams were doing at that point in time. And with every client and with every brand that I was exposed to, there was so much of learning, and it just keeps you going, from one after another. And I firmly believe, even till to date, that every professional who enters the field should actually be exposed to the agency environment for some time, because the kind of learning and ground coverage that you do in an agency environment is really not possible in a corporate scenario, because there you go straight and start using your skills. So that's something that actually helped me a lot during my career trajectory. And from there on, I was a part of a lot of amazing campaigns that really happened. And that was a time when the industry was also changing. So there was a movement from the traditional PR to, entrance of the crisis communication, reputation management, and slowly the digital also entering into the field. So, the constant evolution of the field ensured that as an individual, as a professional, I also gained these strengths over time. And I moved into the corporate with HTC. That was the boom time actually for the blogging community and for the influencer community, because broadly all of this started actually with technology PR, wherein we used to have those smartphone reviews, and the bloggers talking about what's really happening in the terms of trends in that industry. So I would say that I was blessed to be a part of that industry at that time, because I gained a lot of experience from there. And now I, over the years of having worked with different brands, feel that I have a broad understanding of how PR contributes not just to a marketing mix, but also to the business as well. And that's the future of the industry to me. If you are part of the business, if you're contributing, then that's what it is. And as a professional, I believe that one should contribute to the learning, and I'm a firm believer in mentorship. So that's me.
I know, I've seen that part of you earlier as well. So I just wanted to understand, Hindu, we were discussing Sudipta and I while you were not with us right now, that the PR skills, and we actually shifted to the next question, which has already come in from the audience. So I'm going to evolve this a little. Is we what do you think are the skill sets that are currently needed in the industry, and especially how have they evolved after COVID-19?
Okay, so COVID actually changed, see, a lot of things everywhere. So PR is also not any different. Obviously, the things changed, and to some extent, I would say that it changed for better for the industry. So if you really look at the surveys, I was reading a 2021 JOTW strategic comms, wherein survey wherein almost 80% of the people felt that their companies value them more, and they have a table at the boardroom now. So that shows the kind of merit that the industry showed for 2020, because there was a lot of focus on employee engagement, crisis and reputation management across board, across industries. And those probably are some of the on demand hot skills, so to say, today for the industry as well. But where are they based? They are all based in listening, and they're all based in data churning and mining. So that's a very important skill to have, even as a career starter or middle or wherever you are. These are skills that you would be expected to know, to use to the benefit of the industry and yourself as a professional. So that's something I would say, that even now, we are evolving every day, because a lot of things have changed. Earlier it used to be only specialization for a particular industry, but today you have to be a generalist in certain ways, because one person is filling into the shoes of many things nowadays. So one has to be very cognizant of how do you write off the hat, are you creative? And Sudipta was touching upon some of these, so I don't want to be repetitive. But reality is that research, analytics, that mind of asking curious questions, those things are a very important part of what we do today.
No, that's very interesting. I think data, as you said, is of course considered the new gold, and writing skills, I think, will never go out of fashion, because they will always remain a very primary need, especially now with the written word becoming a primary form of communication. Where are the days where we call up people also today? It's all about your emails, your blogs, your Twitter posts, your LinkedIn posts. So I think you both are absolutely right, and we'd love to know a little about, you know, what do you think are entry level professionals supposed to focus on? Like you mentioned, a lot of these skills are perhaps picked up on the job as well. So what would you want in an entry level professional? And I'm going to address this question to you first, and then so that I'll come to you, because she this is the way I'd like to just see this conversation go.
Sure. Thanks for that, Sonali. And in my view, the industry entrant should see that they do not have experience, but they have experience of life, right? So, what have you gained over time is what is your skill, and they should be able to show that in their introductory speeches or letters or cover letters, whatever they write. So, today, digital marketing is a very important skill required for the profession. And if you look at the newer generations, millennials or Gen Z or whatever we call them, or whoever we interact with, they are getting their first-hand experience on it at a very early age. They're all managing their own Facebook pages, Instagram pages. So this is an inherent knowledge that they have, and this can be only proliferated and used for the benefit of a brand to some extent. So that's an existing skill that they should be able to hone. Similarly, like I mentioned, an ability to research, which starts with reading, which I today honestly, and I'm very sorry to say that, I see missing in a lot of youngsters, because I call them Google generation, and they end up researching about everything on Google. So the knowledge that an individual carries is limited in some extent. So a habit to read and then analyze that is very important, which you can actually garner during the time of your college when you're doing your research, whichever the kind of projects you're doing. You could do that. So, and these are skills which will help you even in future career trajectories as well. So for me, when I'm looking at somebody who's starting a career, I'm looking at somebody who's curious, who wants to participate in what's really happening. So the ability of learning is more critical for me, because I know the individual doesn't have an experience. So these are a people skill and a personal individual traits which would be helpful when somebody comes onto my team.
Okay, thank you for that. Very interesting. So, Gupta, how are you matching as academia, matching these kind of expectations in courses today? Like, are you able to, garner these kind of feedback from industry and corporates, and how do you then structure courses for young people today or structure their skill sets accordingly?
Yeah, no, I was just listening to Indu with great interest, and clearly the expectations from the organization is very, very clear, very pithy, and very much the need of the hour. I think somewhere there is a gap in expectation between the students, what they expect to do when they are in entry level positions, and what they will eventually end up getting. And that is where, there is, whenever there's a gap in expectation, and that's because of a deficit of a skill area, that leads to unhappiness on both sides. So how we try to equip students of today is first to say that you know you should be deserving of a position, because it all starts with them expecting a position, a designation, rather than a particularly meaty role. And I think that's where we start laying expectations, we start mentoring students, try to give them a flavor of the real world out there. And a lot of it is about building attitude, because I think for recruitment, the first thing that people look for is the right attitude. So that is one part. The second part we try to mentor them and prepare them for is whether they have the aptitude, because some of the skills are inborn, some of the skills can be nurtured and polished over a period. But if they don't have the passion or aptitude for the field, it's going to be a very difficult uphill and unhappy journey. So whether you are curious in your mind, whether you like writing, whether you maintain your own brand persona. I think Indu mentioned it. They are doing a very good job of creating themselves as personal brands, especially in the digital space. But can that skill be extended to your career, to your work? So, writing, speech writing, creating story pitches. When we ask them to do assignments, we say, please don't treat it like an assignment. Please don't look at the 20 marks at the end of it. That's hardly the point. The point is, are you getting excited by writing a story pitch, or writing a speech, or crafting a PR idea? If these things do not excite them, if they are not doing this on their own and doing it just for the sake of passing exams, then clearly the aptitude is missing. And lastly, you can always give skills. Skills are actually the easiest part to impart, because those are learned things. And if you make them practice through live projects, we stress upon live projects. We say take internships in organizations, paid, unpaid, doesn't matter. Work on live projects. See what it is to do real work outside of the classroom. So I would say these are the three things that we focus on in molding the education for the PR professional of tomorrow.
That's thank you for that. So that is what you are doing as educators. Indu, what do you think young people currently entering the profession should be mindful of when they come to you? What would you want them to be mindful of when they're joining? What kind of tips would you give them?
I would say that while you are studying, you should try to get yourself an industry mentor, which helps you set up some kind of an expectations and introduce you to the real world of PR. Because unfortunately, we live in a world wherein if you look at any kind of cinema or if you look at any kind of novels, or because that's your gateway to maybe getting introduced, and the way these careers are shown in these platforms are very fancy. I can use that word fancy because I've heard that from a lot of students as well at times. And it looks like a very glamorous profession wherein you have the best of everything and you're meeting film stars probably if they are your brand ambassadors. And it looks like a very easy profession. But to all of you who are entering, let me tell you, there is a lot of work that goes behind this, and you're only lucky to reach that stage if you are doing your things right over the years. So, nobody is looking at the real work, the hard work that goes into all of this. And which is why I stressed into the reading capabilities, because I see that missing in a lot of people. If you are an individual who can't really read, then this maybe is not a profession for you. Because when you put out that one press release for that, maybe you have gone through some 100 pages of documents which your office has given to you. So you have to have a knack for that. When we were reading, when I was doing my mass comm, we were told you have to have a nose for news. I think that phrase has somewhere got lost in the middle, but reality is that how do you curate that one paragraph or two paragraphs is an art. And you have to believe in it. I personally believe that PR is art and science together. Art is the your individual perspective, your humane side that you bring to it, and the science is the technical aspects. Like I heard Sudipta also say that there are certain skills which are easier to get, so that you can get because that's a bookish knowledge, or that's something that is easier to do. But getting that creative side of yourself honed, bring yourself to that's something very important. When you're entering into an industry, you should know what actually that work comes in future for you, which I see a mismatch at this point in time. And you should ask the right questions, please. The question should be, what will I become, as a professional? How will my trajectory be? What should I be learning in 5 years? And, not really how much will I earn? Because I see that change and shift in question. And 5 years ago or 8 years ago, when somebody was entering the industry, the only thing that mattered was the brand that I'm entering into, or kind of work that I will do. But today it's about what will I make, will I be the CEO, will I be the CMO, what is the trajectory? So somewhere the grounding seems to be a little a mismatch, and hence I would say that please set yourself right with that. And which is why I started by saying getting mentor, because somebody who's actually in the profession can give you a real insight into what really goes into a day of a PR professional.
True, true, absolutely. But you've touched a very touchy topic, which I was trying to come to a little later. So now I'm going
Okay.
to. So, Dr. Gupta, I'm going to begin with you because I know Indu has very definite opinions on it. How do you set the expectations of young graduates? You see, today we have two problems. One, we have maybe young graduates who are interested in getting a job, and obviously there is an expectation of the kind of salary as Indu has indicated. But we are also living in a world of COVID, where, as one of our audience members has pointed out, that we now are dealing with lower retainers as an industry, or tighter budgets, and we are still looking at salary expectations from young people who join, which may be not of today's time. So how do you manage their expectations at a academic level, where once they've started, how do you counsel them when they start looking for jobs?
COVID COVID has hit a lot of industries very hard, and supporting industries like PR would certainly suffer the consequences. Uh, Certain good things have happened. A lot of organizations are realizing that this COVID situation has taught us as individuals the value of getting back to the basics, what really matters in life. So a lot of organizations are also realizing what really matters in business. They are rediscovering the importance of corporate reputation. So I think the impact on the PR industry would be temporary, and certainly the industry would recover, and the importance of building corporate reputation can only go up from here. So on that note, I think unfortunately, uh, education has become an expensive proposition mostly. I mean, you have a very few public, possible public education possibilities in communication, and many of the private players are trying to come and fill a gap, and you can't really blame them, because there is a gap in the number of students who are out there and the seats in colleges, right? So when private players come and fill in the gap, they have their own cost structure. None of them are subsidized by the government. So that cost is passed on to the student as fees. And when the fees are high, an ROI mindset develops within the parents and the students about the education. So they expect that at the end of 2 years, at the end of 3 years, at the end of 4 years, we will get this much money. So that will justify my investment in this education. So this is a consequence. I don't think we can escape from it. But should we manage it? Yes, because otherwise the gap between students' salary expectation and what the industry can pay, especially in these challenging times, will keep growing. And that's unfortunate. That's going to be extremely unfortunate.
Yeah, so it's something that we have to set expectations for them as well when they're joining. Indu, how would you set those salary expectations? I would love to hear from you, because obviously you might be having good conversations at work as well.
Sure. I would like to address it in two ways. One, I'll give you an example. See, when we say, let's compare it to another course, say when somebody's getting an IIM or a marketing degree or whatever, we get to see these news which comes into the newspaper. It says that the broad spectrum of the salaries was say 10 lakhs to maybe a crore. Then everybody is looking at only the crore. They're not looking at there would be somebody at 10, 15, 20, 25, as well. So that's why am I putting that out? Because in every industry people want to hear about which is the highest salary which anybody has got. But the point is, not everybody can get that higher salary. That's one. So let's be mindful of that. Second is, when you are entering into the industry through various mediums. There is an agency, then there is a corporate. Within the agencies also, broadly we define them into three categories. One is the bigger one is a medium sized agency, and one is a smaller size agencies. So the salary that you get when you're entering could be different for each one of them. So like the bigger agencies like Ad Factors, MSL Group, which are the top hirers, probably if you go there you might have 2-3 thousand over or lesser. But there could also be situations, and I see a lot of marketing students telling me that the bigger brands don't pay you that well because they obviously cash on their brands. So there are different experiences everywhere. So that's why I would say the expectation should not be of money. Expectation should be of the work that you will get. Because when I started my career almost 20 years ago, what a starter was doing was broadly only scanning papers for first 2 hours of the day. That is today digitized. You don't have to do it. Did that add value to me? Yes, I was much more knowledgeable than many others because I was reading and through many kinds of news which got me into a habit of reading. So I'm just saying that everything has its value. But today, is a starter doing that? No. So, you have to not compare it from an ROI point of the kind of money that you have put into studies, but you have to really look at the industry, the exposure, which will define your next 50 years to come. So don't look backwards, look forwards is what I would say. Make a good start, the right start, which sets you up for success for the next many years to come. So that's what I would say. It's not about 10,000, 20,000, 30,000 right now. I mean, what if you get a 30,000 right now and after 5 years you decide I'm in the wrong place and I'm quitting the entire industry? That could be a disaster for you. Instead, you would rather be in a place which maybe pays you less but makes you do the right work, which defines a better career trajectory for you. So look at what I heard Sudipta also say some time back, the meatiness of the role, what you're gaining out of it. Money is not the only thing that you're gaining out of your first job. So look at it like that.
I've also
Sonali,
been
may
in
I
this.
add
Yeah,
something?
yeah, yeah. Please,
I
please,
just
please.
recall that another thing that you earn in your early years is actually you earn relationships. This is not the time to earn money in the early years, is what we were told when we entered the marketing and communications industry. This is the time you make connections, and if you are in the communications area, it is your relationships, it is your connections which will finally be the wealth that you earn over the years. I guess it stays true even today. And especially when you're unable to meet people face to face, when it is a digital medium, a much more distant and a much more sanitized medium, you cannot build personal relationships overnight right now. So you have to bank on your previous relationships. So that's what I wanted to kind of stress upon.
So
I will
I
take a minute and concur with Sudipta on this one. It becomes slightly more important for a PR professional because many of us have our media friends from our first jobs. Because that's when they also know that you are a newcomer and you are struggling, and sometimes you become such pals that those relationships go a very long way. So yes, professionally, it's very important that you earn those relationships right.
So while we are at relationships, this is based on my personal experience with a young person at work, where I told her you have the skill sets, but your attitude is not correct. And career success, I have seen brilliant people fall down the line in a couple of years because of the attitude problem. So, Sudipta, do you think that as educators we need to, only I've noted, unfortunately, in India, especially in the K-12 section at least, we are not really focusing on personality development so much as we are focusing on math, geography, history, physics, chemistry, but we're not focusing on good citizens or interesting personalities. So, how do you counter that at a college level? How do you, because I'm sure that you get a lot of kids who may be able to, like you said, get the skills, and as you said, it's one of the most basic things. But how do you inculcate the correct attitude in people?
A lot of it is restorative action, retroactive restorative action, because some amount of influence has already creeped in them through the schooling system. We have a very strange situation in our education in this country, where we have a schooling system which is entirely focused on something, and a higher education system which is now telling them to focus on something else. Let me take a simple example. In a school, you are not encouraged to think critically. You are asked to take everything at face value. Now, neither in higher education and later in the work life, in as a PR professional, can you continue to do that. So we are teaching them something from childhood, and then we are trying to, in the higher education sector, in our undergraduate and postgraduate programs, we have to undo a lot of that stuff and prepare them for the reality, for the real world out there. You see, so like I said, a lot of it is just corrective action. And we cannot do it in the classroom alone. Courses and projects and assignments cannot address the attitude issue. That is done through counseling. So a lot of emphasis is given, especially in private colleges nowadays, on mentoring. And the mentor is not your class teacher. The mentor is not your subject teacher. Mentor is someone completely unrelated, probably from another program, from who can maintain an objective view of who you are developing as a person, not just looking at your report card and counting the marks. So, mentorship is very important. And I think I'd go back to what Indu said. She said, also seek out an industry mentor. That will give you a bigger reality check. So, a faculty mentor plus an industry, dual mentorship is required of every individual. It takes a village to bring up a child. And it takes both academia and industry together to mentor and bring up one good professional among hundreds. Even if we get one good among 100, we'd feel successful.
That's a very nicely put note, and I'd like to, I've got a very interesting question from the audience again. And given that we are all of one generation, the demands of the younger generation are also changing as our living expenses. Do you think we sometimes judge the younger generation based on our own experiences, considering that at our times the cost of education was not that high? And I say this both as a parent and as a person who's hiring young people today. And the fact that expenses have risen. So it's a very strange conundrum. And I read somewhere that the millennial generation is actually never going to have the kind of wealth creation that generations before them had because of the living it. And this is a global statistic, it's not just in India. So would love to know about that from you, Indu, first, and then Sudipta, I know you will have a different viewpoint on it because you're seeing their, you're also understanding their aspirations. We are only seeing them as one side of the coin, as professionals who are coming to us for work, but you are seeing what goes behind all that, all the hard work they've put in into their education and their hopes and their dreams. So Indu, what do you think? Do you think we are looking at them through a slightly biased lens?
I wouldn't really agree on that one. And I totally believe that the needle has also moved. So, just to share and for the benefit of people, when I started my career, my first, take home was as simple as a 3,000 rupees, right now. Today, when somebody is entering into the profession, it's 30,000 and it's still lesser. So I'm just saying it's not that the things haven't changed, and I am not questioning the 30,000. So it's not really a bias, but the bias is maybe against the expectations. Like, I and Sudipta in the past during this conversation also mentioned that we were told, and we still believe, because, those values still are important, that you have to learn, you have to remain in a profession for a longer time, you have to earn the relationships, you have to do a lot of stuff. So, it's okay that you're expecting to take care of all your expenses through the first paycheck that you're getting, but the reality is the paycheck is going to solve a lot of other things for you. So why is it that you're only looking at money? That's where maybe the disconnect is. Because in our generation, and if because to answer that question, I would love to say that we are all oldies, and in our generation, we were all told to study and to try to juice up the job that you have. Now, the juicing up the job was to take away as much as possible, from your boss, ask for more work, maybe learn more, get more opportunities. But right now, there is a lot of backfooting. Everybody, and we need to realize that, when we came into the profession, we were all told is 365 days, 24/7. And I still believe in a situation of crisis, a PR person has to work like that. I respect everybody's individual spaces, but you have to be cognizant of the industry that you're getting into. And then you cannot say that since I work 365 24/7, then I should be paid more than X. That's wrong. So, you have to love your work, you have to get into it being mindful of what you're getting into, and then only you will be able to reap benefits. If you're in your mind, you're only comparing, like, in a previous chat when we were having this conversation, that my ex colleague's son, or my neighbor's son is getting a starting salary of 1 lakh, then why is mine getting 20 or 30 or whatever? Those are mindless conversation, because what that person is doing, where did he do it from, what kind of attitude, like Sudipta mentioned, all of them go into what are you getting. So please don't look at it simply because I have an iPhone and I have to pay an installment for an iPhone. You chose to buy that iPhone. Your office never asked you to pay, buy that iPhone. So I'm a little sorry. I'm not getting defensive, but the reality is you have chosen a lifestyle which you liked. and now you are, trying to make somebody else responsible for it, whoever is hiring you. That's I don't think that's a very good approach to have. You should take ownership of, what you are wanting to do, and live with what you have, later on. So, and things will improve, things will change. So that's my point of view. It's not a bias, but I would say that, if you want a proper growth in a career like this, then the investment is always higher in the initial years, in what you're putting in, the hard work, the time, the learning expectations, and your benefits come in a few years time. So that's my take.
Amazing. Dr. Sangupta, I'm going to add something to this question. Do you also, this is coming from the audience, do you also think that sometimes these expectations are governed by the fact that some students think of the PR industry as something very glamorous? Do you get students who come to you and say that, and they don't really understand the seriousness of the profession? So I'm adding to, of course, what their expectations might be salary wise, but do you also think that going forward, that's part of what they think and that governs their thought process?
Yeah, in academics, we have a challenge where most of us come from a similar age group, and and then we are actually trying to communicate with on a constant basis with a completely different generation, and we have to create these little meeting grounds, because otherwise, never the twain shall meet. And when we try to create the meeting grounds, there are some things that we start looking at from their perspective. So when we say, why do you spend so much and unnecessarily? Okay, because you have the power to shop at your fingertips doesn't mean your fingertips should constantly be on the buy button, right? So this is the way we think and we speak. Now they tell us, and this is something that we have to understand, they tell us that we are not like you. We will not postpone our happiness. We will not postpone our experiences, save up little, after 20 years I will buy a Maruti 800 car. No, they are not our generation. So we have to appreciate that, and appreciate that there is a hunger within them, okay, to acquire, and not just things, mind you. I wouldn't say that they are shallow enough to just want things. They are hungry for experiences. They want to live through it all in a short span of time. What we were happy to do in 45 years, after 45 years, I have visited Istanbul. Oh, I'm so feeling so good, right? They want to do it at 23. So that is their perspective, and we have to respect it. Now, what we counter at that stage is, then be worthy of it. Then be worthy of it, because if they are in a consumer mode, right from school to college, right, we are consuming education, our teachers are marketers, that attitude, when they go into the workplace, that consumer mindset never stops. They feel that you have to sell your job to them. You have to market your job to them, and if they like it, if they like the company, if they like the people, if they like the workplace, or the shape of the conference room, then, so these again are not helping them. So we have to then, find a meeting place where we say, what is real, since they are about authenticity. They are very much about authenticity, and they don't like fakery from their teachers, from their workplace, from their organizations. They expect a lot more, and that is very good. Is it okay? If you are about authenticity, then give authentic work. And when you earn whatever it is that you earn, be mindful that then you deserve it. You're worthy of it. Because automatically I'm worthy for the best in the world is not the right attitude. That we do try to change.
True, true, absolutely. So coming to being worthy of it, I have some very, upset people in the audience who are asking, what is with basic skills? Reading and writing being missed from candidates wanting to enter the comms industry, and why and how do they expect it to grow? And Indu, if you remember, we have seen a lot of, in the last agency where you and I were together, we saw a lot of young people, hardworking young people, but lacking these skills. And obviously, their promotions and their moving ahead was stopped because of all these things, and it was very heartbreaking for them. So, how do you view it? Do you feel that young people coming in today are lacking in these skills? I think Sudipta has also highlighted that earlier, that there is a bit of a gap in writing and creativity and thinking.
Sure. There, I would like to say, so, Sonali, that while something on the lines of what Sudipta mentioned, that one is it's from the beginning in the school days. Are you made to read or write? See, I personally believe if you don't read, you can't write. It's very simple basic thing which a lot of people don't accept or don't want to accept, simply because it takes away their time from the screen, or from the social media or something else for that matter. But you need to realize that one single post that goes on to any of those social media requires so much of thinking and creativity. The people who are doing that are so news savvy. One of the key things that today is getting a lot of popularity is moments marketing. What is
Yeah,
moments marketing? It's as simple as that something is happening in the world, whether it's Virushka giving birth to a child, or whether it is about Prince Harry, along with Meghan Markle moving out, or whatever, all kind of things. You can react to that on behalf of a brand in the social space. But you can only do that if you're reading, if you're aware of what's really happening around you. So it's very important that you have those habits. And like I said, choose your profession carefully. If you do not like this, if you do not like to read up, if you don't want to be informed, then maybe this is not the profession for you. be you have to be mindful of what you really like, and which is what I always say: if you do what you love, you will excel at it, and you will obviously go high in your career. But simply because PR looks nice, it's very glamorous, so and so is earning very high in my family, or somebody has become my idol, I want to do it. No, these are wrong reasons to get into a profession. You need to get into a profession for the right reasons. You have to love certain things to be in a certain profession. If you don't like advertising, or if you don't like all of this, you can't be in marketing. Similarly, if you don't like reading and writing, or in today's day maybe researching also for that matter, you can't be in PR. I'm sorry. I mean, even if you want to be a specialist, journalist, whatever it is, doesn't really matter, but these are basic of a profession. So you have to get it right. You can't say, I want to be a sports person, but I don't want to exercise. I don't want to be fit. Can that work? No. It's a basic thing, so you have to get that right.
Sudipta, hearing Indu, and of course hearing all our audiences, a lot of you who are very frustrated with hour and hours of the young people. Do you think academia is addressing that enough?
Uh, yes, I think academia has also evolved, and last 2 years have been very challenging for educators. If anything, our workload has increased because the online mode is not the best. I don't know, one day maybe robots will teach people, but the online mode is not the best way to ensure learning. I can teach, but has the learning occurred, or has the person switched off their video and is napping? Or once or twice I've got people watching movies on the side, and somehow their audio turns on, and I say, okay, which movie are you watching, tell us about it, and somehow try to bring the conversation back to the topic for the day. Engaging their attention has become very important. And I think it's our job, because really it isn't their fault that these two have been such difficult years, that they are doing classes online, doing projects online, giving exams online, so tough. So feeling for the students, I feel that we have done, and we will continue to do much more. It is a blessing in disguise, because the amount of online exposure that they are getting will make them more digitally savvy in the workplace, teach them to use database and other access tools better, if they choose to work on it. So there is a lot more we can do. I'm sure there's a lot more we can do in terms of uh, giving them real skills. Unfortunately, without a face to face interaction, most of it is one way delivery. The two-way interaction bit is lacking, and we have to find, as educators, we have to find ways and means to hear back from them, because what is worse than an inattentive classroom is a bored classroom, and the online media tends to do that.
I have to tell you that I didn't even realize how quickly the time has passed in this panel. So I don't have much time left, and I've started getting messages from our moderator, our technician Tarunjeet, to start wrapping up. So I'm going to begin with Indu. I think what would be really relevant is, what do you, according to you, would be skills you'd like to see in young people coming in? Like what would you be your message be to academia today, to say that, okay, please make sure that kids have these skills when they are there, like those three things that you feel are non-negotiable.
I would say it should be the right attitude, curiosity, and willingness to learn. Those are very important, because in the beginning, I'm not saying be specific on this skill, this skill, this skill, because you can't have them. So these are life skill, these are people skill. At least have that, right? And we'll groom you to the rest.
What advice would you, three things would you tell a young person, Sudipta, joining the workforce today? What are the three things that you would tell them when they fly the nest from your you?
I think I would agree with all the points that Indu said. Those are very much there, top of the list. And I would add teamwork. With distributed teams, which never meet each other, never shake their hand, never share a cup of coffee near the gossip water cooler or whatever it is. Things are just harder to build relationships now, and I think some of the students are in danger of forgetting how to build relationships. Isolation is more than physical among students of today. The stress levels are very high due to this isolation. They are very anxious, they are very stressed. I can't imagine. I don't think I was stressed out at 21, you know. So I would ask them to manage their emotions and learn teamwork.
Thank you, and that's a very sobering thought, actually. So we tend to forget that. Indu, what are the resources you suggest to young people joining today to skill up? Any kind of skill. Where would you suggest them to go? What do you suggest them to study?
Okay, I would say that most of the online platforms, Google has a lot of free trainings, Instagram has a lot of free trainings. You can adopt to that. And if you are ready to invest a little money, I would say that take a LinkedIn Premium. LinkedIn has a lot of courses which also teach you the softer aspects, like we spoke about pitching, we spoke about managing relationships, attending online meetings, various kind of skills, and that also upgrades you to what really is happening in the industry at this point in time. So please take up these kind of courses, because there are shorter snippet of what actually an industry person will also tell you to some extent. And yes, last but not the least, have an industry mentor, even if it's not something that an office is or your college is providing, because they will have different kind of mentors, like Sudipta said. Please try to reach out to industry people. There are so many people in PR industry who would be happy to help you in certain stages, and it is not only in studies, it's from how do you make your CV to what do you say, what should be your elevator pitch. There is just so much practical to learn. So, I would say that these are existing tools, and I'm calling mentors also as a tool, because you learn a lot from them as well. Please take up and make use of all that is available, and this should help you.
Okay. So Dipta, what about you?
Yeah, absolutely. I second all of that. I think if the students are really focused on a PR career, then they should be avid readers. If you are not in the habit of consuming news, you will never be in the habit of making news. And I guess that is the reading habit that we're all expecting the students to inculcate right from the word go, not after 2 years, not 2 weeks before placement season, but the moment they have decided to start a course, formal, informal, in an university, through online education, whatever. The habit of reading needs to start the moment their mind is made up.
Absolutely. And with that, I am going to just request you both to take a trip back to our Facebook page once this panel is over. This has been one of the most interesting panels I have done personally. It's been such a pleasure to talk to you both. We will get a lot of questions in across the weekend from readers, sorry, from viewers, and we'd love for you to maybe check in back tomorrow evening on our Facebook page and see if there are any particular questions. There are actually certain questions which are addressed to you both individually as well. So if you would like to take a look at it, we'd be very, very grateful. And I think this has been such a well thought out panel. Your answers have been so helpful. I think I have learned a few things today, especially, realizing the anxiety levels of young people are very different from what we had, and the world has really changed from what we were at 21 to what people are today. So I'd really like to thank you both, Indu and Sudipta. Very interesting views, very helpful to a lot of young people hopeful of a PR career today. Thank you for taking out the time and being part of a PRPOI panel. Been a pleasure to speak to you both.
Thank you so much, Sonali. I would just end by saying that to all the newcomers, PR is a dynamic profession that evolves constantly. Expect a roller coaster ride. Welcome.
Great, great.
It's been
Thanks
Thank
a
an
you.
lot.
absolute pleasure, Sonali and Indu. Bye.
Thank,
Thank you
thank
so much, Sudipta. I also learned personally a lot of things. Thank you, Sonali. Thank you, Tarunjeet. It was very interesting to be here. Thanks a lot.
thank you.
Bye bye. Bye.